Wealthies, welcome back. This is All the Wealth. If you're new here, I'm Mical Jeanlys-White, the founder and CEO of Wealth More, and this is our wealth building channel. And today with me is Kevin Matthews of Building Bread, and we are ready to have an exciting conversation about building wealth, having access to a wealth advisor, and hear a little more from Kevin, who's been one of our biggest advocates and supporters on his platform. And I could not be more thrilled to have Kevin here with us today. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, Kevin, I would love for wealthies to hear a little bit about your background because I find your story so fascinating. First and foremost, why did you become a wealth advisor?
Yeah, I actually started my career as a seventh grade math teacher. So I was, teaching the Pythagorean theorem and a lot of the things that we don't necessarily use every day. But I started my career as a teacher and learned that throughout the program that I was in, we were very good at sending kids off to college. But after about a year or two, a lot of the kids came back and we found out that they couldn't actually afford it. They did not have the money to stay in school. So I figured, like, hey, if that is the big issue, what is a way that I could use my degree in economics a bit better and help families to build generational wealth and actually save and afford for college, which is, last time I checked, very expensive. So I went into financial advisory. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I knew the history of Black Wall Street. So that was kind of always in me. And that's what led me to move to New York, become a financial advisor, and try and fix that part of it to help families like the family I came from the kids that I taught, to figure out how do we build generational wealth? How do I teach people how to save early for college, to invest and build from the ground up?
I definitely want to double click on the college piece because this is a pretty big one. There's nothing more tragic than someone starting the college journey,
Mm-hmm.
taking on debt, like 2 years, 3 years worth of debt, than not seeing it across the finish line. So you essentially don't have a degree, you still have the debt, and you're not getting the earning power that a degree should buy you.
Absolutely.
Those things that, and we will get to college, but it's certainly one of those things that we highlight for folks as they're going on that journey, is making sure you can pay for that college across the 4 years, because there's really not much you get out of it if you're not able to cross that finish line.
Yeah, you end up in like this weird middle ground, like you mentioned. It's like, well, I had the debt as if I went, but I didn't go, and I don't have the earnings. Now, what do I do? Right. And then on the opposite side, for parents, and one of the reasons why I advocate people for talking to a wealth advisor and like, hey, you need to seek a professional, is because they also run to a middle ground of, I have my own student debt. I also need to save for retirement, but also how much do I put away for my kids' college? So you have these three competing interests, but you only have a limited sum of money. How much goes where, and how do you prioritize those three things? And a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. So, Kevin, you moved from Tulsa, Oklahoma to big old New York City to become, in my opinion, one of these like Wall Street bankers, right? Pinstripe suit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, like, walk in there with my Gucci suit, my portfolio, and go in and like help people make money. And then what happened?
Yeah, that's just kind of a portion of that was right. So I did have, look, I had me the nicest gray pinstripe suit, and I had my portfolio, and I came in, and for a time I did do well. I ended up managing over 140 million. By 2017, I was one of the top 100 most influential financial advisors, and things were great until you get to a point where you can only manage a certain type of client. And as you kind of move up the ladder, it got to a point where if you didn't have $100,000, if you didn't have $250,000, you can talk to certain clients. And that was it. Now, that was great for my paycheck, right? It was great for what I was doing for the day job, but it really wasn't good for my purpose and what I came to do. And the biggest thing is, I don't really get to make a difference for those types of people. Like, if you already got 250 in cash, you probably already got a million sitting somewhere else, right? If I help you buy your first stock or sell your college fund, you're gonna be fine. You okay?" You don't really, really change anyone's life per se at that point. And I was like, I don't really enjoy doing this the way that I used to, and I'm really changing lives, which is what I came here to do.
Yeah. That I feel like our stories and our journey is so similar because the sort of like dirty little secret about wealth advice is that it's for the wealthy. You and to the point that you made is once you get into one of these big firms, you are discouraged. If you're spending time on a smaller account, it's frowned upon. It's sort of like, dude, you have 8 hours, 10 hours a day. What are you doing spending time on that little account?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so
I'm
you're
like,
not able to help everyday people get access to the playbook.
mm-hmm.
And the clients that you're helping, it's not make it or break it for them.
Right, right. And it's like the person who walked in with their first like 1,000, or the kid who just graduated and got, the first, 2,000 from graduation money. Like that is where you make the biggest difference in setting them up and like getting them with an automated investing plan. Like that is where that person can be drastically different over the next 10 years. Right. That's where I get excited. That's where things get really fun. But they're like, hey, that that doesn't make me blink an eye, right? I want the $10 million client. That's where you need to be spending all of your day. That's who you need to be calling. That's where your focus needs to be. And I'm like, I mean, I get it, but like that that's not what I came here for.
And that's not where the vast majority of Americans are, right? Like
Exactly, exactly.
you're
And that
talking
that ain't where my pockets was either. And it is really, it got to a point where like I couldn't help as an official advisor for my parents. I couldn't take my parents on for clients. I couldn't take my grandparents on for clients. It's just like I could take my entire family's net worth and they still wouldn't qualify. I'm just like, well, what am I doing here? My One of my purposes in life is like I want to be useful, right? I want to be able to help people. And in my official capacity, I couldn't help them because they didn't qualify. I'm like, this isn't fair. And I had to use like one of the, extra qualifiers or whatever to bring the bar down for me to qualify for my own services because I didn't have 250 in cash because I'm 4 or 5 years out of college. Like, what college kid has that much money sitting around? And it was like, you know what? This just didn't feel fair because the people who needed that advice most did not qualify.
no, and it is the worst form of gatekeeping because
Mm-hmm.
we know the folks who do get that wealth advice, they're going to grow two times, even three times more wealth. Like I still say the 2x, but the latest study that came out earlier this year said it's trending closer to three times more wealth. Right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it is like who gets advice and who doesn't really does shape your individual picture, but then even for generations to come.
Right. Absolutely.
So tell our wealthies a little more about building bread, like what's that journey been like? And sort of like, what are the key things you want everyday people to know that you were telling these rich folks?
Yeah. My journey is really to make investing simple. I think there are far too many terms for the exact same thing in Wall Street, where it's just like, hey, simplicity is key, and there are some things that can be complex, and that's where you want to bring in an expert to help simplify things for you. But again, keep things simple when possible, keep things repeatable, keep things automated, and stay focused on the main goal. So my job is to explain things out there that are complex and make them accessible, is what I try and do, and just educate the masses on like, hey, here's what's going on, here's what it means for you in a way that actually makes sense.
I so love that, right? Because let's take things like risk profile, right? Like
Hmm.
people make it sound, the minute you put risk on it, right? It already sounds scary. Like, what's
Hmm.
your appetite? Like, most people would be like, zero.
None.
Right? So versus like we play with that. We'll use like hot sauce as an example. Like,
Yeah.
how spicy do you want to go? How much heat can you take? And people can relate to that, right? Because
Hmm.
it's like, okay, I understand that. Like, just how much can I, stomach? And if I'd
Yeah.
rather stay in like a conservative portfolio versus something more aggressive. And then having people understand that, as you get older, you may want to be more aggressive, but it's not advisable.
Yeah, and that's very similar to how I would explain it if I'm doing a session or something. I say it's I usually have a picture when I was much younger on a bike, and I tell them it's the difference between pedals and a brake, pedals and brakes on a bike. In that when I was younger, I can fall off and be okay. Scrape my knee is fine. Like stocks are the pedals. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna push you forward, and that's you need both, right? In any case. But as you're younger, you can go faster, right? It's okay. But as you get older, falling hurts. It's not fun. It is harder to recover. You definitely want that helmet, or like a helmet is optional at 13.
Yes.
So, you definitely want to change the allocation, be more cognizant of those breaks as you get older, because, as I've aged, right, I'll fall and I'll be like, that hurt. And that was 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago. So you feel those hits a bit more. And it's kind of like how you want to adjust and approach your portfolio as you age, because you are not the same person. Your portfolio is not the same or shouldn't be the same, as it was 10 years ago. Things have changed. So you want to make sure that you adjust those things.
Yes. Speaking of injuries, PSA to all the dads out here. It's Father's Day this Sunday. Some of you will want to flex and pick up basketball games with your youngins. Beware, you will not recover as easily.
Look, I have stretched and I am undefeated to this day. Now my oldest is only 7, but look, it is what it is. only got but so long.
We have seen firsthand the injuries in our own family from our unks trying to take on the youngins. And well, not for the youngins, for the Kevin, as you sort of made this transition, what have you learned from the Building Bread community? You have built this amazing community of folks. I love the content that you have out there. You've been also introducing that community to Wealth More. And I think for me, one of the big ahas going into building Wealth More is that I thought financial literacy was maybe here for people. And then as we started to have more and more conversations, it became clear to me that the fact that we don't teach financial literacy in our school system, we don't teach it in college, that the divide is even way bigger than I thought.
Yeah, I think, and it's something I'm working on and doing a lot of research on now. But there is a baseline that we have had, and then there's like a barrier. So I think we've done a decent job in just the financial literacy arena and teaching like the basics, savings accounts, living less than living beneath your means, general stuff like that. Credit card debt is bad. I think most of us kind of know that, right?
Get
But
a
then
FICO score. Yeah.
right. We'll talk about that later. The FICO score thing.
So,
But people are aware of that, right? People know like 800 good, 500 bad, right? But there was a point where people really didn't know that. But there's a level beyond that is also extremely important. And I think that the gap is we don't have a bunch of rule books, if you will, that are written on that part of it. I think the reason is the previous generation didn't really need a bunch of financial advice if you really think about it. Like for example, like my dad had a pension. He worked for the fire department and he just went to work for 20 years, got his money, didn't have to go to college. House was paid for because housing was cheap back in those days. And that was it. You know, stock market for what? Just it was very simple, right?
about this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin. When we took away pensions,
Mm-hmm.
big firms went to DC, lobbied the legislation to take away pensions and to create 401ks.
Mm-hmm.
We did that. We told the everyday American, you have to be both the doctor and
Yep.
the and
Exactly.
give them any financial literacy. So all of a sudden, we told you guys, you have to be a fund manager. You have
Exactly.
to understand Wall Street. You need to understand how to invest now to have enough money when you
Mm-hmm.
turn 65 and then have that money last until your last day. And hope
Exactly.
you have enough to pass on to somebody.
Right. And I think
No,
all of those, yeah, so all of those decisions hitting at the same time, that is the part where people are like, oh, wait a minute. I thought all I had to do was checking, savings account, credit card, and that's it. So when you combine that plus all the other changes that people have had to deal with, like, oh, wait, what about crypto? What about the rising cost of college? Why are housing prices so much higher than what they were 2 or 3 years ago? What about inflation? What about tariffs? Like all of those things, like condensing just within the last, let's say, 10 years, that is where that extra sphere of like, oh, wait, there is a lot more than just the basics that are out there. They're overwhelming people and they just don't know what to do because there are a lot of different areas to really poke at once you kind of get over the first, 2 or 3 steps.
And it's also where I think, another thing that we've missed, Kevin, is that we also, as social media has taken off,
Mm,
we put a lot of rules on certified financial planners, like
yeah,
the job that you had that said you can't go, you can't say. And then
yeah,
folks who haven't put in the time to learn true financial planning and investment strategy have taken over social media and polluted the waters, just like flooded the place with just bad
yeah.
information. I mean, I could be fighting in these like comments all day long over bad information, but
Hmm.
we're also like, no, we're in a regulated space. We can't give advice. We can't do this. We can't do that. And so now everyday Americans who don't have a pension, don't have a wealth advisor, are getting flooded with just nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't want to go too far into weeds to honest, but like there's regulations if you have certain designations or what you can and can't say, and if you don't have designations, they let you say almost anything, which is not great, right? Yeah, and the problem is, we say this all the time, but like, a lie or a mistruth can spread faster than the truth actually will. And that's the thing. I fall in a very strange space in that someone who was a professional who doesn't have a license, so I know, both sides of it. But I had a regulator come and tell me, I'd spoke at a conference and they called me a quote financial expert. I didn't. I just said, "Here's my name," right? And they just put financial expert on there. And Regulator said that they didn't like the word expert in my profile that they had used. I'm like, I didn't know expert was a word that couldn't be used. Number one,
Yes.
I didn't know it was a bad word. But also, I have been doing it for a while. But that's how strict the rules are in some cases.
Yes.
But like they will police what you can and can't say in certain cases.
But then there is like zero oversight for people with designation.
Right.
I wealthies, we did an episode on home ownership because for me that was one of the most egregious bad things that younger people were told in the last like 5 to 10
Hmm.
years. Like, and I know you've gotten some heat about this. I've seen it. Shall we go there, Kevin?
We can.
You're back on this one because homeowners have X more wealth than renters. And we had historically low rates, and young people were told to shy away from home ownership. And the flip side is the reason why homes are so expensive is because the people that have owned them have benefited from the appreciation. We
Hmm.
never go, MG, the stock is too expensive. No, it's at that price point for a reason.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And
we took that one.
we also don't talk about like I've done research on this for a project I'm working on. We don't talk about how current homeowners block new home development. So it's like once you get a house, you make sure no one else gets a house to make sure that your house value continues to go up. So it's like, well, what? Come on now, like the reason your investment or your home is going up is because now that you have one, you ensure that the supply and
Yes.
demand is in your favor. So it's kind of rigged. And the other part of it is the whole, homeowners have a higher net worth. It's also older people have a higher net worth, and older people tend to own homes too.
Yes.
So those two stats also, overlay on each other.
And you also have this dynamic of older generations stayed in one place longer, right? Younger people are moving around more. So they find it harder to make a commitment to owning a piece of real estate in any destination because they're more fluid, they're
Right.
more transient, and that impacts it as well. But I think it's so important for people to understand like the power of home ownership as an asset class, the power of investing in the stock market as asset classes, and to not fall for misinformation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
these things like home ownership, real data on returns, entry points, exits, like capital created. Same with the stock market. And you alluded to crypto a little earlier. Not as much history or data on that, but yet
Yeah.
misinformation.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. So Kevin, as you sort of we're in 2025, you know, we're dealing with tariffs every day.
Every day.
Every day. I believe yesterday there is not an agreement, temporary, maybe semi-permanent, who knows. But it certainly impacts the psyche of investors, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we know everyone has a certain like psychology of money. And we have seen that even within our Wealthmore community, from those who have been like, hey, I'm buying the dip, to those who have been like, I'm very worried about the tariffs. How are you navigating this sort of unprecedented? Like, we've not been in a market that has been so driven by negotiations or lack thereof around tariffs.
Yeah, I my response has been to control what you can control for the most part, and really that means to control your psyche as much as you can. So if that means turning off certain notifications, then go ahead and do that, right? Because what often happens, and I would say it's a natural response for a lot of investors, especially if you don't have a wealth advisor, is, oh, this is happening. Let me sell everything. Let me withdraw and like protect myself. The data shows that that does not work, and it actually does not help you. And it sounds like it makes sense, but it actually doesn't. So I understand why people would think that that's the right move, but it actually isn't. So that's number one. But number two, we are hardwired psychologically to remember the bad consequences and remember the negative things, the losses, rather than the wins.
Yes.
And that's something, so like when the market falls or Liberation Day, like, oh
Yes.
my God, the market fell. This thing was bad, blah, 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 blah. But as of earlier this week, the market was like 2% off from an all time high. Well, nobody paying attention to that.
No.
Who knew that we were this close? We'll see. Like, who knows what's going to happen the rest of this year at this rate? And also, there have been a bunch of stocks that have been up significantly, even double digits this year. Why not focus on some of the positives? There are pockets and areas of the stock market that are doing quite well that you could focus your attention on. But again, we're looking at the negative. Social media sometimes focuses you and puts the negative in your attention, so that, or at your attention, so you can focus on those things. And that's what we attach to. There's a reason why on the news it shows you what? Negative information first, because that is more engaging than the things that are positives. Sometimes you have to, notice those things. Say, hey, look, this might not be the best for me. Let me cut off notifications about tariffs, because honestly, you don't want to have to change your portfolio every day. That is not
You should
healthy.
not. You should
That ain't
not.
how it goes. So that sometimes you are your emotions rather, are sometimes your worst enemy when it comes to your portfolio and your finances.
I'm so glad you talk about like the emotional side, and it's something we as a Wealthmore team we talk about a lot. And I certainly tend to lean towards bringing our wealthies like the data,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can hopefully like pull from the data to regulate the noise or to make sense of the noise. But I'm also, I should say, the team has also like reminded me over and over again, McCall is still emotional. Like, data helps, but it's still emotional. And we actually pulled up some research that showed that, to your point, how people feel about losing $100. So if
Yeah.
you lost $100, the offset would have to be that you didn't make 100, that you made 200.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much people like the loss feels so much deeper, that the win has to be like 2x to have the same like emotional impact to someone. That's a
Yeah.
insight for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that always sticks with me. But I mean, it's like this, right? If I were to ask you what were some of the worst years in the stock market, I know that you're probably thinking about 2008 right now.
Yes.
Everybody immediately went to 2008.
I
And
also
then
went March 13th, was it?
you know the date, right? But if I asked you when was the last all time high in the stock market,
I would not know. And I
March
do
March 19th, 2025. What was the one before that? Nobody knows. How many all time highs was it in 2024?
know.
I don't know. Like we have all of these great moments and nobody truly cares, but we still hold on to 2008 though, of
Yes.
how bad, and it was bad. Like, let's not lie. That was a bad year, but
20
like,
now,
huh?
which is approaching 20 years now.
Yeah, like that was almost 2 decades. I was in high school and we still talking about that, right? About how terrible that was. And from then to now, we've had so many positive years in the stock market, but our brains are hardwired to say that was so terrible that some people don't want to invest anymore. That was so terrible that in 2020, the stock market was up by the end of the year. But we are so hardwired to think of the negative experiences, and that was a bad year. But for the stock market, it was down in March and it recovered by December. But that's not how but it warped reality to say that, hey, it fell and that was terrible. And we just kind of stopped the calendar there and just say, oh, Great Depression, it was bad. Let's just turn it off. And that's actually not what happened. The market was up double digits by the end of 2020. But again, that is our psychology, that is our emotion, but that's not actually what happened in that year.
Yeah. And Kevin, as we talk about like the emotions driving people's behavior, I want to, story time here because I feel like this was one of my personal lessons learned in investing is early on having like a big event happen in the market and taking cover, like, and I felt like I was doing the right, like, I didn't even feel like I was exiting. I was just like, well, let me take it out of like something risky and go super conservative, which wasn't the right strategy because I'm super young at the time. There was no reason for my portfolio to look like that of a retiree that needed an income stream. So I do this thinking I'm protecting myself, right? Because I need a safety blanket. I'm feeling like out here, like, too exposed. But then 3 years later, market is rocking, and I'm like, oh, I should be doing well. Like, yay, woohoo me. I log in and I had never moved it out of
Mm,
that for conservative strategy. And that's where I think a wealth advisor plays such a difference because they probably, if I had an advisor at the time, we would have been having regular check ins. I would have probably not done that aggressive move of like, I don't know what to do. So let me just run for cover. And that's what we hope to like share with our listeners here is that there is an emotion, but we also need to balance it with data. And
mm-hmm.
the advice is so critical so that you're not out here making decisions and 3 4 years later thinking your portfolio should be here but it's been humming at 2 3%. It was barely outpacing inflation.
Right, right. And I think that's one of the things that I don't think enough people realize around working with a wealth advisor is that some people just look at, well, did I make enough money? Right, as like this is the value of working with somebody. Sometimes it's the value in avoiding a certain mistake, right? The value of just you having kept that money there over X amount of time. You could have made more, right? Having worked with somebody could have been a difference there. Like that is the value of working with somebody and saying, hey, let's not do this because that's going to cost you X amount. Like those are the hidden pieces of working with somebody that people just miss or don't think about, that an expert knows to say, hey, look, let's save money here, let's not make this mistake, let's not withdraw the money from your 401k because you don't qualify. Right, you can actually get hit with the penalty. Like I've had people I said, yeah, I left my job and I just took a withdrawal. I'm like, ooh, no, you're supposed to do a rollover. Look, what you
Well,
mean? Yeah, I'm like, oh, you did what? And they just didn't know. I'm
they don't
like,
know. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like working with someone who is qualified, who does this, or this is what they do, they can help you from avoiding certain mistakes.
And I want to explain that to wealthies who are listening. One of the things, Tanya does a good job of always reminding me is that, some people don't even know what you guys just said there. So if you are leaving your job and if you just take a disbursement, there is a penalty on that 1K and it's normally like 10% or more because the government believes you're just taking that money out. They don't know that you plan to reinvest it maybe in the 401k of your new employer. That is what is called a rollover. So if you intend to invest that money and keep it invested, you must do a rollover, not a withdrawal, not a disbursement. And what that means is that you're just handing it off. So let's say you were working at Home Depot and now you move to Lowe's. You're just saying, hey, I am just moving the money. I'm not taking it out. I just need the continuity.
Right. And if you are someone who, let's say you worked at Home Depot and you're moving to Lowe's and you didn't know and you just took the money from the 401k and put it in your checking account and just left it there for a year, then you could get hit with that penalty and could be quite expensive. I
Yes.
had someone who did do that, not from Home Depot, but just did that. It was like, I didn't know that I could have put it in another 401k or an IRA. I'm like, oh, you should have told me that a long time ago. We could have saved you, whatever the penalty was going to be. And they were not 59 and a half. So it wasn't retirement money. So yeah, it can be expensive when don't have good advice and ask, the right people for making certain big financial decisions.
And we see this with our wealthies. And I think that that was a big reason why we not only made it super easy for folks to schedule a one-on-one right in the Wealthmore app, but also they can easily message any one of their wealth advisors. Because we realize sometimes you just need like a sanity check, right? Like, hey, I want to
Mm-hmm.
double check, right? And just like having that easy ability to talk to your wealth advisor, confirm this is right or wrong, can save you thousands of dollars.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So Kevin, as you're looking into like, the back half, we're already towards the back half of 2025. What are some of the things that you are hopeful folks will do? I always look at as we go into these summer months, and I see people, some of you out here doing the YOLO thing. I really wish you would do it towards your investment strategy. Really, please, please. I'm always putting wishes out here on this channel, but I really want you guys to be like YOLO is for my investing strategy as well.
Yeah, I guess for me, to I'm someone who likes to think ahead. So continue to think ahead. So for example, when I like to review my investing strategy, so December 2024, I was looking at my portfolio and thinking, what can I do to prepare myself for potential tariffs way back then, right? In advance. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know it was going to be wild like this, right?
No, none of us.
And I still can't predict it, right? But I want people to look ahead as much as you possibly can. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. They don't sell them on Amazon, and if they did, they would probably have a tariff on it anyway. Try and say, like, hey, look, sit down with your wealth advisor, sit down with whatever you need to do, like plan things out in advance, as opposed to, oh my God, this thing hit me, and I don't know what is going to happen. Right? Like there are some spaces and industries where they may do layoffs, right? If there is one, what can you do to prepare in advance? Right? Is it adding a bit more to the emergency fund? Think of those things in advance so you don't have to react to them after the fact and drastically change everything about your life. So that is something I really wish for people, so that you don't have to like get hit with a huge financial thing and have to deal with it, when it's something that you can be like, okay, I prepped for this. Because that's something that I did. The tariffs hit. I'm like, I was ready for this. Like, it didn't come the exact same way, but like, this is why I had this extra stuff here in case things got more expensive than I expected them to be.
I love that because what I hope people walk away from by having an investment plan, a wealth plan, is that peace of mind. The number one stressor for Americans is money. I mean, every time I hear like a health platform, a mental wellness, and this is mental health month, money is the number one stressor for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
It just speaks to how much our generation is out here without like a parachute, right? You guys are out here feeling like there's no guardrail, there's no safety net. I don't have a pension. I have to figure all of this out. And it can't be good to like every night be worrying about, can I make the ends meet? working so hard. And we are known for our hard working mantra. The whole world is like, these Americans can't seem to stop working.
Hmm.
And with that should not be financial insecurity. It should not be that we're busting our humps and yet we're still feeling financial insecurity. We're still wondering if we're making the right move. We're still wondering if our kids will have enough to go to college, if we'll have enough to retire. And everything we do here is to help people get that confidence, that swagger, that like, no, I've got this, right? I
Hmm.
have the right resources. I can come talk to my wealth advisor. I can come to this channel and feel like my house is in order.
Hmm.
I mean, that's really what we want people to get out of this, is to be like, no, I don't have to live this way. I don't have to like constantly be sort of, worried. Like, it's just not a good feeling. And I know me personally, I'm like, I don't like that feeling. Like, that energy is not productive. I mean, it causes anxiety, it causes like relationship drama. And we know that it doesn't have to be this way. It does not have to be this way.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that I learned once we had two kids. We had moved here, and it got stressful. And one of the things that we realized was just, as a parent, y'all know your house is never the same. It's toys everywhere. Kids just be throwing stuff, and it got to a point where it's like, all right, let's hire somebody to clean this house. And things were less stressful. I got a robot vacuum, and kids drop stuff and come clean it up. I'm like, ah, my stress is gone, right? And when it comes to finances, you might need somebody to come through and clean things up. And that's like, again, we're already working so hard to get the money, then coming home and trying to get a spreadsheet, figure out what you should invest in, how much should you, like, that's a lot. That is a lot, right? It might make sense to get somebody to clean that part of your life up so that you can focus on enjoying the money that you do have, right? And spending time doing the things that you should be doing, like recharging and spending time with your family and everything else.
Yes. That is our wish for you guys, like financial peace of mind. Like,
Hmm.
zen. I want you guys to enjoy financial
Relax.
zen. Oof, because it's just a crappy feeling. Like, I grew up in a household where money was always an issue. And I just knew, like, the next generation, I don't want that to be the story. Like, I want to live in financial confidence. I want to pass that on to my children so that they walk this experience differently than I had to walk it. So, all right, this is the lightning round part of this. These are like the fast spitfire questions. So, here we go. What is the best money advice you've ever received?
10 years ago, I forget the exact quote, but yeah, 10 years from now, you're going to wish you started 10 years ago. And that's the best one. There's so many times where it's like, yeah, I wish I started way back then. Like, we always wish, like, oh, I wish I would have bought Nvidia back in 2015 or whatever stock. And it's like, you might as well start now, because in 2035, you're going to wish you started. Like, stop waiting, start now.
Spot on. I've never met someone who said, "Man, I wish I had started 10 years later."
Right. Yeah, I wish I just waited longer.
That's what I should have delayed this, lost my compounding interest, lost growth. Like, that's the move I should have made. Now, here's another one for you. What is the common money myth that you're like, we just need to like put one away? Like, we just
This,
have to like pack this bad boy up, put a bow on it, and just let it go.
yeah, there are a lot of them. So Jay Z already ended the "would you take X amount of money over the credit score" one, so that was done.
Yeah.
Hopefully, but the one that I don't like is the $100,000 isn't a lot of money. That is more than the vast majority of people in the US. Like, it doesn't go as far as it used to, especially in my parents' era. It don't go as far as it used to in New York. I felt that myself. That's why I'm down in North Carolina. But it is still a lot of money. You can do a lot with 100K. And obviously, based on the metrics, it is people are doing it with less, right? It is far more than the median salary of Americans today. So yes, if you make 100,000, that's a good salary. It is a lot. Don't let a viral Instagram post tell you that it's not.
Spot on. I mean, if you're trying to live like a celebrity, yeah, it's not a lot of money, but most of us are not trying to live like celebrities.
Right.
It is a nice, hefty, and it used to be a goalpost. So it's quite
Yeah.
interesting that it's now like poo pooed upon when it's still not where most people are today.
Right.
Yeah. Here's another one. What is a book or resource you recommend over and over?
A book or resource. So I would say a resource that I used that changed the game for me. It was an Investopedia simulator, and I mean it was stock simulator, and it's something that got me more comfortable with investing when I was in college. But basically, you get to have $100,000, and you go in and like pretend to invest, and it shows you based on what is happening in the market, would you have made money or lost money. So one, I got to invest. It's a simulator, so I got to invest when I was young, see if I was good at it. And I was. I beat all my friends every year. The 3-time reigning champ. Hey, I ain't forgot. But it did get me a lot more comfortable. Like people are like, I don't want to lose money, so on and so forth. Like, go practice, go learn. And you can get your kids involved too if they're much younger. So that was the absolute resource that helped me when I started, and it was free.
Yeah. So, lastly, what is the one habit that you believe is like, this is how you build wealth over time?
The one habit, automation.
Yes.
Like don't rely on your willpower if you don't have to. If you can set it up, automate it, and forget it, that is the absolute key.
I love that. That was one of the things I felt like I learned early on. I took an internship at Merrill. They put me on the retirement desk. I thought it was the worst. I'm like, why am I on the retirement desk? I would be in sales and trading or investing. Like, who did I piss off in the interview process? But that team, it was the best internship I could have had. They took me under their wing. They taught me everything. And the number one thing they said was just do it off the top and do it every single time. And as soon as I got my first job, I opened that 1K, those automatic, like it's like I don't have to make a decision. Like I commit to funding it and it just goes. And I do the same thing with my Wealthmore account. Like I just know I'm taking it off the top so I don't have to debate whether or not I do it this month or next month. And over time, like every time I log in, I'm like, I like this number, like where
Yeah,
this is going.
yeah, yeah. You look back, look at this, and that's the thing. That's the thing. When we have to like physically do it, it's kind of like working out. You'll find excuses not to go sometimes. And it's like, why do that, right? If it is important for the IRS to automate their withdrawals from you, you might want to do it for yourself.
That is a great comparison. Kevin, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. This has been such a fun conversation. You love talking about money. We love talking about money. So excited that we can share some insights, nuggets with our wealthy community. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms at Building Bread, YouTube, Instagram, and everything in between.
Kevin, thank you again for joining us, for supporting us on this journey, building building bread family. Join us over here as well. The conversations are always interesting and the mission is always the same. We want to make sure you guys have that financial peace of mind that you deserve. Thank you guys. Until next time.